Once upon a time, there was a Taniwha called Waiata. Waiata the Taniwha lived in a river with his father. Waiata loved to sing. His favourite song was one his mother used to sing him before she died, when he was just a baby Taniwha. Te waiata o mana whenua, te wairua o te ao. Te waiata o mana whenua, te wairua o te ao. One day, his father came to him and said, Waiata, something in the water is making me sick. I am becoming very sick very quickly. I need help. Find Wairua, the old Taniwha who lives beyond the waterfall upstream. Remember, a Taniwha's greatest power is his song. Take my song with you, and take whatever songs you may learn on the way. Toru, fa. Whaia, whaia, whaia te iti kahurangi, ki te tū o hukwe, me he maunga te, strive on and on to the heights, stumble only to a mighty mountain, stumble only to a mighty mountain, fire. Well, Waiata went up the river, singing as he swam. He came to a branch in the river where some other young Taniwha were lying in a pool in the morning sun. Hey, it's early. We're trying to sleep. Where are you going? They said. I'm going to find Wairua, the old Taniwha beyond the waterfall, to heal my father, said Waiata. Which way is it? They replied, Wairua, the mighty Wairua. That's just an old story. And you're probably looking for the water of life. Good luck with that. Oh yeah, don't forget to sing your magical song. Might need some singing lessons first, though. They snorted and chuckled mockingly. Waiata didn't know what to say, so he just carried on swimming, feeling a bit sad and a bit doubtful. His swimming felt heavy, not very smooth, and he felt tired. A tui, a kaka, and a kereru had been listening and flew along beside him. Hey, don't listen to those Taniwha. Listen to this and learn it. You never know when you might need it. Eko ekwe te tui, te kaka, te kaka, e kuku te kereru. Eko ekwe te tui, te kaka, te kaka, e kuku te kereru. Well, the kereru flapped and glided from tree to tree next to him, plucking at berries as he went. The tui and the kaka darted ahead, disappearing into the distance. Waiata thought about the song and what it meant as he sang it. Waiata soon came to the bottom of the waterfall. He had never climbed a waterfall before. He sped across the big pool at the bottom and leapt high onto the waterfall, but he slipped and fell onto the rocks below. Oh! He tried again, but again he fell. He was cut and bruised. I can't do it, he said to himself. Just then he heard a little voice. You're doing it wrong. He looked around, and poking out of the trunk of a huge kahikatea tree was a small white grub. She said, See this huge kahikatea? I can eat right through it, one bite at a time, and you can climb that waterfall one wriggle at a time. Here, learn my song. It will help you. kakati, te kahikatea. It may be small, the mokoroa, but it chews right through the kahikatea. Waiata began to sing the mokoroa's song, and as he sang, he found places to squeeze between and ledges to push and pull himself up with. And with the help of all the forest creatures singing, he iti hoki te mokoroa, nana I kakati, te kahikatea. He had made it to the top of the waterfall. Now Waiata swam to the side of the river and collapsed, bruised, cut from his falls, and exhausted into the sand and stones in the shallows. But then his vision started to blur. His head throbbed and his gut turned like he was going to be sick. He tried to swim onwards, but his head rang and his muscles felt weak. He became disoriented, and he felt himself being carried back to the waterfall. As the roar of the waterfall grew louder, the current quickened and he began to black out. He felt a strong tail wrap around him and heard a great voice singing, Waiata mai, come sing with me, come sing Tihe Moriora. It is the breath of life. When he woke up, an old Taniwha was gazing at him. Waiata, I know why you have come. The birds told me of your father, your quest, and your climb up the waterfall. Well done, young Taniwha. The river is sick. And with your wounds and exhaustion, it made you sick. I healed you with my song, with which I have also protected myself. To heal this river, you must find the water of life. It comes from a spring high on this mountain, but I can't say exactly where, for it moves around, and it only appears to the brave and the pure of heart. I cannot go, for I am very old now, and even as we speak, the sickness weakens me too. So you must go quickly. But first, learn my song of healing. You may need it. Waiata mai, come sing with me, come sing Tihe Moriora. It is the breath of life. Wairua was satisfied that Waiata would remember the song. But wait, said Waiata, if I take this song, then I can heal my father and heal myself, and I could help you. Why do I need the water of life? The sickness in the river may pass. Wairua said, your father may still be alive. You may be able to heal and protect him and yourself with the song I have given you, but I can't say for how long. The sickness may grow and destroy your father, yourself, and all life connected with this entire river. You have a choice. I have one more song for you, a song to help you choose and to help show the way, if you do choose to seek the water of life. But you can use it only once. Mō tātou te tai ao ko te ātawhai. Mō tātou te tai ao ko te oranga. It is given to us to care for the world, for it gives us our wellness in return. Waiata learned the song, and he left. He said farewell and surged up the river with new-found strength and speed. At every place where a new stream flowed into the river, he had to choose which way to go. Well, he could only use the song once, so he always chose the bigger way, because that would lead him to the greatest height. But eventually he came to forks where each way looked about the same. He had to choose, but each time he chose, the way dwindled away to rivulets and rocky gullies from which he could not draw enough strength. He returned to each fork and tried the other way, over and over again, until he thought he had tried every stream. It was now late at night. Speckled shadows from the moonlight fell on the water, and the ruru called. He struggled back downstream to the last fork he had come to, and stopped to rest with his head in a shallow pool. "I'm exhausted," he thought. "I'm sure I have tried every branch of this river. Is this even the right river?" he wondered. A tear trickled down his cheek, and then he sang. Mō tātou te taiao ko te hata whai. Mō tātou te taiao ko te oranga. It is given to us to care for the world, for it gives us our wellness in return. And as he sang, the night creatures joined him. The ruru, the kiwi, the frogs, the crickets, and the water creatures sang along. As they sang, the moonlight reflected brightly from the water, illuminating even the rocks beneath its surface. Even though he had already tried that way, Waiata followed the stream until he came to a fork he had not noticed before. And in one direction the light reflected brightly, while the other was dark. He followed the moonlight. Upstream he went for many hours until the dawn came. The moonlight vanished, and the sun rose over the mountain. The stream became shallower and rockier. As the day went on, everywhere he went he noticed the colour fading from the leaves, the bird song becoming weak and plaintive, and everything that lived seeming to move more slowly. Waiata could still move as long as he was touching the water, but it was tiring with his back in the air, his belly on the rocks, and now the sun on his back as the forest canopy thinned. Waiata gritted his teeth and pushed on, rolling over from time to time to moisten his back. But it was becoming too much for him. He gasped, squinted into the sunlight, pushed his body into the rocks, and remembered his father's song. Whaia, whaia, whaia te iti kahurangi, ki te tū o hukwe, me he maunga te. Strive on and on to the heights, stumble only to a mighty mountain, stumble only to a mighty mountain. Whaia. As he sang, he pushed on and on, until he saw a little tree further upstream, which might offer some shade. He wondered if what he saw ahead was the top of the mountain. The stream was becoming a tiny trickle. The sun beat down on his back. He wriggled on a little further, reached the shade of the tree, and there, before his eyes, the water disappeared underground. Waiata could go no further. He stopped with his head down, with barely enough water to breathe in. No, he thought, it can't be. Then a little voice called out. It was the mokoroa. He had been holding on to Waiata's tail the whole time. And he sang. He iti hoki te mokoroa, nana I kakati, te wakahikatea. It may be small, the mokoroa, but it chews right through the kahikatea. And with that, Waiata took one more wriggle. And as he did, the mokoroa called out, "I'm sorry, my friend. I wanted to help, but I can go no further." He was exhausted too. "I can swim," he said. "Perhaps the water will carry me to a tree I can burrow into." And Mokoroa let go of Waiata's tail, slid onto a rock, and lay very, very still. Waiata took a breath, turned his head, and sang to Mokoroa. Waiata mai, come sing with me, come sing Tihe Moriora. It is the breath of life. And as he sang, Mokoroa lifted his head. He was filled with strength. "Thank you, my friend," he called, and he crawled to the edge of the rock and slipped into the tiny stream, his little body floating on the water, slipping over the rocks, bobbing up from under the water, until far downstream in the forest he came to a quiet bank, where he climbed out, crawled up a tree, burrowed in, and rested. But Waiata had no more strength. No strength to sing, no strength to move. Hardly enough to breathe. He started to slip in and out of consciousness. The birds came in close to him and said, "We will help. We will bring Taniwha to rescue you. We will find the spring of the water of life. We will return." As they flew away, Waiata thought, "I have failed. Those Taniwha were right. The spring is a myth. Some other Taniwha was meant to find it. If I live, I will go back to Wairua and tell him I am the wrong Taniwha, that the spring no longer exists, or at least I couldn't find it. I guess I'm not brave enough, or pure of heart. My song is useless. My voice is not good enough. I can't sing like my mother, or my father, or my friends." Waiata passed out. As he did, just by where the water disappeared beyond the tree, the ground opened up a little, and a pool of glowing water began to grow. Waiata dreamed. He dreamed of his father, his mother, Wairua, Mokoroa, Tui, Kaka, Kereru. He dreamed all the songs he had ever heard, and he dreamed of a pure, magical water flowing down the stream. And while he dreamed, a little of the luminous water overflowed and touched him, keeping him alive while he dreamed. And in his dream he heard the cry of the Kaka drawing near, then the chimes of the tui and the quiet cooing of the kereru. The birds had come. They gathered little leaffuls of the water and sprinkled it on his face and sang to him. Eku ekwe, eku ekwe te tui, eke teke te te kaka, eke teke te te kaka, eku ku te kereru. Waiata awoke. "You are here," said the birds. "You made it. This is the spring of the water of life." "But what do I do?" Waiata said. "Haven't you been listening?" said the birds. "Sing your song." The sun was setting behind the ridge. Waiata lifted his head and looked up. The light of the pool of the water of life was fading, and the sides were closing in. "But I don't know what my song is," implored Waiata. "Neither do we," said the birds. "Only you know." As they spoke, the water of life darkened with the fading light, and the pool shrank. Waiata called out, "No!" and writhed desperately across the rocks and plunged into the water. It pulled him down into a deep darkness with great pressure, deeper and darker than anywhere he had been before. He turned corners and was sucked through dark water caves, as if in a great underground maze. Finally, the water and Waiata came to a stop. The pressure was immense. He could hardly move. He felt like he was both awake and dreaming. Then he heard something. He didn't know if it was in his mind or outside of him. It was his mother's voice. Then it came from behind him. He turned and saw, through a portal in the water, in a swirl of colour and movement. Or was it all in his mind? His mother, shining and swimming freely in a beautiful light. She spoke. "Waiata, thank you for coming. I am here. I am safe in the world of the ancestors. You must find a way to return to the world above, but I do not know it." Then he heard another voice, and a swirl of colour appeared next to him. He heard the voice of Wairua. "Waiata, you have made it. You have passed all the tests, and you are alive. But I have departed from the world above. My body is no more. I enter the portal now." Waiata cried out, "But is this the water of life? What is my song?" "Only you know, Waiata, and you must sing it here, now." And with that, the spirit of Wairua passed through the portal. The portal began to close. His mother called, "Farewell, until we meet again." And she sang, "Te wai." For a moment, Waiata wanted nothing more than to go into the light and the colour and sing and swim with his mother and Wairua. But he held himself, watched the portal close, and he was left in complete darkness, silence, and pressure. He took a great breath of water, and from deep within him the song welled up. He began to sing. The water itself seemed to sing with him, so that even all his friends and the many creatures above heard it and sang with him. "Te waiata o mana whenua, te wairua o te ao. Te waiata o mana whenua, te wairua o te ao." As he sang, the water began to move. He sang and drifted through a strange timelessness, and the more he sang, the more the water carried him through the dark tunnels and back into a deep well where he saw a tiny pinprick of light far above him. He sang, and the water lifted him up, carrying him all the way to the top until he burst out straight into the air like a great whale from the depths, crashing back down and splashing the water onto all the animals that were gathered, waiting around the edge of the spring. It was morning. A whole night had passed. Or was it more? Waiata kept singing, and all the creatures joined him. "Te waiata o mana whenua, te wairua o te ao. Te waiata o mana whenua, te wairua o te ao." The water overflowed from the spring and carried them all downstream. Down and down they went, some departing into the trees as they were given new life, born on the water of life which poured out of the spring, with every creature in the forest singing as they heard Waiata's voice and the voices of all the creatures in the forest coming towards them. The water poured down the mountainside, refreshing the trees, all the animals, and the land itself. It carried Waiata safely over the waterfall and swiftly towards his home. He even swam ahead of the flowing water, and arriving home, he found his father curled in a dark corner, hardly moving. But as the new water came and washed over him and filled him up, he stretched himself out, opened his eyes, and gazed with wonder into Waiata's eyes. With each breath he took, his eyes opened wider, his scales brightened, and his body strengthened. Soon he looked as well as he had ever looked, and he said simply, "Thank you." The water and the song flowed on and on, touching and restoring all life downstream as they flowed, and all the creatures of the river and the forest around sang with thanks and wonder, giving their voice to the healing as it flowed down the river to the sea. A short while later, when the rush of the water of life had passed, all the creatures had rested a while, and the balance was restored in the valley. The mokoroa, the tui, the kaka, and the kereru came to find Waiata. "My friends," said Waiata, "we did it." "You did it," said the birds and the mokoroa. "But not without your help," said Waiata. "Oh, and now I have a song to teach you. Thank you for your songs." No te roro, naku te roro, ka kite kete. Your little basket, my little basket, our basket is full. No te roro, naku te roro, ka kite kete. Your little basket, my little basket, our basket is full. "My son," said Waiata's father, "I have never shown you the sea. That is where all rivers meet, and from there you can visit other rivers and valleys, and visit the Taniwha of the sea. You have learnt much now, Waiata, and you have learnt many powerful songs. Go, see what you can find, where you may be needed." And so it was that Waiata and his new friends decided to go on a new journey. But that is another story, and shall be told another time. No te roro, naku te roro, ka kite kete. Your little basket, my little basket, our basket is full. Te waiata o mana whenua, te wairua o te ao. Te waiata o mana whenua, te wairua o te ao.